Welcome back to On Assignment. I'm your host, Liz Cochrane. In previous episodes, we've talked about the challenges facing local news and how people in our communities get information. Today, we're going to focus on a feeling many of us experience and what we can do about it, moving from doom scrolling to civic joy. By looking at how local stories are told. Joining me is Nari Han, an expert who has been studying these trends and community insights. Nari, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
So Nari, let's start with this idea of doom scrolling. I think many of our listeners know the feeling, getting overwhelmed by bad news when you're looking at your phone or watching TV. What is the impact of this constant stream of negative information?
That's a really common experience today. We know how the dominance of bad news in the information space is actually leading to burnout and disconnection. The news can feel perpetually depressing with stories about crime, corruption, and when you turn on the Sunday political shows or cable news in the evening, it's often just people yelling at each other.
And what happens when people feel that way?
Well, in the best case, it leads to disconnection and disengagement from news. But at its worst, it can actually lead to distrust in our neighbors, our communities, and our institutions. When we're constantly seeing problems and conflict, it erodes that sense of shared community.
So if the news is focusing so much on problems, how can local journalism evolve to counteract this?
Well, I was at a community session hosted by the Steinman Institute for Civic Engagement and Press Forward. They're working really hard to gather data and bring together civic-minded individuals and news organizations. Their work is still in the early stages, but I'll share what they've learned so far. It's simple, we need to make a shift. We can't just keep trying the old ways. We need to look upstream from news, looking at information not just as formal reporting, but as lived experience, personal connections, and people's curiosity about solving local problems.
Upstream from news. That means thinking differently about what information is valuable?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that news needs to be about more than just what happened or just reporting on problems. There's an insight that suggests news you can use. Information about the ways our community is working well, this type of information can actually help build civic connection and trust.
So it's not just ignoring the bad things, but finding ways to show how the community is responding or solving issues?
That's right. A former local TV news manager mentioned that good news doesn't have to be happy news. The core of what the community needs is often stories that show ways our community is working well or highlight collaboration to solve problems or proactively seek out ideas that are working. It's a shift from just highlighting problems to prioritizing centering solutions. This is an emergent finding. That centering solutions rather than problems allows communities to develop a stronger sense of place and cut through pessimism and cynicism.
And how does this connect to civic joy?
This is where it gets really hopeful because building civic joy, well, they described it as the sense of satisfaction and agency that comes when community members can meaningfully engage and to do it with others. It's that feeling of personal connection, pride, and shared impact that happens when people see themselves reflected in local stories and events. By focusing on solutions and how people can get involved, news and information can empower people to experience this civic joy.
It sounds like a more active participatory role for news. What are some concrete ways the research suggests local news and communities can do this?
The big one was that this work needs to be more community-centered. One concrete idea is creating a Neighborhood Heroes Spotlight series to celebrate small acts of civic goodness. Another is building a StoryCorps-style project to capture and archive personal stories of local impact and collaboration.
So making it easier for the community's positive stories to be seen and heard.
Yeah. Many community collaborations are happening, but aren't always amplified. Stories of success often go unreported. There is a need for communities to have stronger tools to tell their own stories. This could involve storytelling skill shares or positive gossip workshops to help residents amplify uplifting stories using tools they already have. It also means news organizations making it easier for people to submit their stories effectively.
Are there other approaches?
Yes, there's talk of creating community idea labs, safe spaces where people can test and develop new ideas together. Also, embedding storytelling into community events, perhaps even paired with food, to create those spaces for connection and shared reflection. The goal is to shift the narrative from what is my organization doing to what does our community need and how can we work together to meet that need.
It really emphasizes collaboration and community ownership, doesn't it?
It does. Local news can serve as a platform for building trust and a launch pad for civic action. They have a unique opportunity to reposition themselves as conveners and resources for people who want to experience that civic joy. It's about helping people move from just being aware of problems to feeling equipped to take action and getting involved with others.
This shift from focusing on problems to centering solutions and civic joy seems like a vital path for local news to become more relevant and essential to communities today.
Absolutely. It's about reimagining what local news can be, making it more participatory and powered by community trust. The old style idea of if it bleeds, it leads just doesn't connect anymore. We've got to innovate or die.
Nari, thank you so much for sharing these insights and highlighting the potential for local news to foster civic joy.
My pleasure, Liz. It's an exciting area to explore.
And thank you for listening to On Assignment. Join us next time as we see how journalists and newsrooms can leverage the power of the crowd by reimagining community news submissions. On Assignment is produced by Robert Sterner. Stay informed, stay involved.